Here in the Army of Gmodism, we believe in law and order. Therefore, we're going to build the Army of Gmodism Constabulary. Thank you. Gmodism. Our honored Admiral Scoobyrocks has been elevated. To celebrate this, we will indeed build the Army of Gmodism's Constabulary, as per his request. Each rank in the Army of Gmodism has its certain rewards. And to thank all our members that are joining and supporting us every month, we are going to provide some cool benefits and also make a super fun project while having that opportunity, which is a win-win for everyone. We have ideas for 4 different crafts that will be in this fleet and will of course be the official arm of enforcement when it comes to the fantastic rules and regulations that we will uphold in the Army of Gmodism. I will tell you that it's smart to be part of the Army of Gmodism to not get problems with the AoG Constabulary in the future. You never know. Better safe than sorry. Let's get to the drawing board and see what designs we should do. Alright, so we're here at the drawing board. We're here and we're going to do some sketches for the blueprints. So it's gonna be the Army of Gmodism Constabulary fleet indeed. So the Sheriff is gonna be a pretty huge ship. It's gonna mainly have plasma cannons, large missiles and a very powerful laser. We're also going to have a medium type of ship, which is going to be a sheriff deputy, and the medium ship will escort the sheriff. Then we're going to have a observer drone. It's gonna be a smaller one, which will be named the State Trooper. And lastly, we're gonna have a fighter airplane for this fleet. And first it was called Mall Cop, but he changed that. So now it's probably gonna be Officer in Training. The Officer in Training will be a small aircraft fighter to take out other aircrafts, because the Sheriff and the Sheriff Deputy will be pretty heavy hitters, especially the Sheriff, and we don't want their firepower to be put anywhere else. The State Trooper will help with getting more accurate detection, so to spot the troops and give some light firepower support. For the Sheriff, we're going to draw up a design here, approximately how I like it. I wanted to have this bow here, this is from the side of course, and it's going to have a pretty strong bow with some cool cutouts and stuff like that. We're gonna have some pretty large plasma turrets on there. They're gonna be so expensive. So one of the kind of wishes was that it would beat the Gimli. And for the same price point, I could already tell it will not be able to beat the Gimli, because the Gimli is a pretty min-max design. The Gimli's armor happened to be set up in order to deal pretty well with plasma cannons and stuff like that. So the Sheriff, if it's gonna be the same cost as the Gimli, it's very unlikely to be able to take it out actually. But in any case, we're actually setting up the Sheriff to be... It's gonna use a lot of plasma, you know, so it's gonna be pretty expensive. We're also probably gonna have some broadside cannons fixed in there to add here. We're going to have a little area where we can see there. We're probably going to add more plasma turrets on it. I'm thinking probably 4 plasma turrets, something like this. So this is just a broad sketch. We'll see how it turns out there. But this is gonna be the really bad thing here. Really bad boy Sheriff. It's gonna be very, very dangerous. It's gonna have huge plasma cannons. I'm actually thinking to have 4 big plasma cannons. So I'm not actually sure where we're gonna place them, but it's gonna be my best newly developed and most expensive plasma turret I have. Probably gonna have some diff guns in the front here too, just to give some open fire, because it's gonna be broadsider. And I think I'll have some different guns along the broadside in different sections somehow. We're gonna see exactly where we're gonna place them and stuff like that. We'll probably wanna have some type of AA gun in the back as well. I'm thinking we're going to do this really fast. We're gonna do a really fast sheriff. So it's gonna be huge, but it's gonna be real fast too. So yeah, that's gonna be the law enforcement arm of the Gmodism, Army of Gmodism. Now the sheriff deputy, I want to kind of make it mirror the sheriff a little bit. So I wanted to have the same type of bow here. So it's really cool. We don't have so many aesthetics limitations here. We are just having a little wish on what it's going to do, its function, and its type of weapon loadout. So the sheriff deputy will have a really big front-mounted charge laser and a front-mounted charge plasma down here. So it's gonna be pretty cool. It's gonna be super alpha strike. We're also going to have a couple of front-facing diff guns here. So it's gonna be pretty fast as well, I imagine. And I think we can probably have some auxiliary plasma cannon there to give some general firepower. Then we have the State Trooper, and the State Trooper is of course gonna be a small type of robot type design. So I'm kind of thinking it's gonna be a kind of lean back robot like this, gonna have some shield portions, and it's gonna have some guns sticking down like there. Let's draw it from the front instead. We might get a better understanding how it's gonna look like with shoulders like this. They're gonna have two guns here, and then just have a body going down there and some thrusters going there. I don't think I can make this very quick, but I do want to make sure it has kind of antenna looking structures to make it look like a observer kind of, and it's gonna have very good detection. As for the anti-air, I haven't decided exactly how we're gonna make this look. I imagine we kind of would make a pretty standard kind of wedge design, but if I'm drawing it from above here, we might not make the traditional type of airshift. I was thinking a design that looks a little bit like a butterfly in a way, like spots or something. Well, we're gonna see about how we're gonna design this. I probably make this one, and then I'll probably also make a auxiliary one, which is going to be like a really huge jet engine in the middle, and then like tiny wings like this. Now I'm trying to even draw 3D, like a plane. It's gonna be very minimal, and it's also gonna have some missiles and stuff like that. But I'm kind of just having like a big jet engine on the plane. Could be pretty cool. So just a little recap here. The sheriff is gonna be plasma missile laser. It's gonna be huge, and that's the sheriff. As for the sheriff deputy, it's gonna be an alpha striker, and it's going to be equipped with charge laser plus plasma. It's gonna be a medium design. And here for the observer, it's going to be small, but it's going to be an observer class kind of. I don't know if we're gonna have repairs on it or not. And the officer in training, what it will be called, will of course also be a small design, and it's going to be R2 R fighter. So hopefully this sounds like a cool idea for you, and of course Admiral Scoobyrocks, who is supporting the channel every month at Patreon, which is why we're doing this little project as a token of respect for long-time support. So there we have the crafts that will be in the AoG Constabulary. So basically, the sheriff is gonna host some of these. It's going to host a couple of state troopers, or one of them, or two, I don't know. And it's also going to host a couple of fighters. So this will actually be a carrier. So it's gonna be pretty interesting. We're gonna have both these ships on board and get them auto-launched. And this is not gonna be carried, of course, the sheriff deputy. It's going to be an escort, I would say. I think this will be a very interesting setup. So hopefully you think that this fleet idea sounds pretty cool, and we're going to try and make it a little bit military police themed, but of course it's going to mainly be the Army of Gmodism designs on stuff as usual. So that should basically be it. I think we should get into the game and start outlining some of these designs and see how we will go forward with developing them all. We're gonna start on building the Sheriff. So when starting to build a big project, we're gonna go with the same method we used when we built the Gimle. We're gonna make a big wooden board and base the design off of that. I found that having a wooden board as just a structure block is probably a pretty good idea, because there is no need to use expensive materials when making an outline. Yeah, I think this is roughly gonna be the size of the Sheriff. So it's gonna be pretty big. We're gonna see, of course, but it's gonna be an expensive one. 250 meters, is that too long? So we're placing the little turret here on it. I think we should have 4 turrets, but I tried and went with 6 turrets like this. So this is, of course, the Belanus turrets, the plasma turrets. They're really, really strong and very, very expensive. So the issue is I kind of want the bow to be around this high. So I think we can't, it's gonna be too flat if we do it like this. It won't fit an airship. It needs some vertical shape to be a nice looking airship. Then we also have the little detail that adding these 6 turrets make the cost be basically 1.8 million. So I think we should use our resources a little bit more wisely, because these turrets, while being good, take a lot of energy. So I don't know how large of an energy infrastructure we need to even host this thing. So I kind of ended up not making it quite as vertical. I think this might be a good elevation or vertical height for the turret, as long as we don't make it too wide in the front here. So we are going with 4 turrets like this, and I think this is gonna give a good reach, especially from a broadside position, to give some really strong plasma firepower. This should basically melt anyone that hasn't armored specifically to counter plasma a little bit. Which is, by the way, kind of the same way you would armor to protect yourself against the thumpers or Hesh. And as for the Sheriff, that's actually all we're gonna look for today. We're just gonna have a little quick dive. So let me present the first steps of the Sheriff Deputy, the Alpha Striker that is going to provide some really hefty firepower support to really take on targets that are much larger than it. So being a medium ship, I think this will be a reasonable size for it, 77 meters in length. So we have some bulk to basically fill it up with those charge systems. We can't protect against everything, and I think that for this type of design, we're going to have a lightweight design, so we're gonna use alloy, and we're gonna back it up with some wood. So basically, it won't have much of a built-in spall liner in the sides of the ship, but it's also gonna be a front-sider. So if we do some type of protectiveness from the front of it, it should be alright. But having a lot of wood here afterwards also would weaken some Hesh spalls a little bit. Also, it doesn't have heavy armor in it, so I think it would be okay. But I'm looking to create a kind of interesting shape here. This is of course also an airship, even though it has a pretty traditional boat shape now. I kind of want it to have a boat-ish shape in the base of it, and then we're gonna add some cool airship things on top of it. So we're gonna have some custom jet engines to propel this thing for sure. And here we finally have, for this little iteration, for this little early look at the Sheriff Deputy, you can see we got a nice shape going on here. We have added the front cannon. It's gonna have a lot more decos and stuff like that. And then I did a really cool design on these diff guns in the front, which I'm pretty happy of. They look a little bit more like crams, but these are diff guns. And they're going to provide some initial firepower. We're gonna see if it's gonna be like armor piercing heat or something like that. But basically, we're going to have a couple of, just a couple of diff guns. Obviously, these can't have 5 shots each, it will be 4 shots per cannon to make them fit tight like this. And in the front we have a charge laser and a charge plasma, and they're gonna be stuck and fitted into the same barrel. So we're gonna put some cool decos on there too. So here you can kind of see I tried to create a little bit interesting bow thing that would work for an airship as well. Inside of here we have our really slick and cool looking shard diff guns, APS direct input feds. And here I've started to build on a charge plasma system. So you can see each of these columns only has 1 generator, and we are probably going to use this type of setup, but we're gonna make it even larger. This currently only has 44 charges, which is kind of a lot, but I want it to have insane alpha strike potential. So yeah, and I don't know if this is gonna be long enough. I do realize that these things needs a little bit more clearance, so that's an issue. But yeah, basically, that's the initial shape of the Sheriff Deputy. So let's move on. Here we are having the earliest looks at the State Trooper. And the State Trooper is obviously going to be this little observer drone thing. So I really try to make it as crammed as possible. You can see we have a turret block inside of here. And this is actually a turret with some EMP insulated weapon controllers. We have an AI here. I don't know how I will be able to EMP insulate this, but it's gonna be a pretty crammed project. So basically it's gonna be a little bit like the Twin Guard. It's gonna be a hip hovering thing, and we're gonna have a torso with a head and some arms on it. So that's basically the look we're going for. As for the second iteration, you can see I added some heavy armor all around it. This actually flies and floats like it's supposed to. If we check here, you can see these are at a very low power, providing some thrust. So I just added some extra weight to make it controllable, but it's just temporary. I started to work on a kind of EMP insulating area here. This is the turret part, which means we don't need to insulate this from this because they are on different areas. We got the spin block here, so this area is protected from this. I think it should work pretty fine. I think we're able to cram the most important pieces of the AI on the little hip base here. So here we can see the observer, the State Trooper, has gotten some type of arms here. So we have a vertical little spin block here, and here we're attaching some arms. So this is a vertical turret, and this is a sideways turret like this. I think it looks pretty cool. Now we don't have quite a balance anymore. We need to set it up a little bit more properly. However, we had just not enough space, so I had to remove the EMP insulation. The main AI, however, had some EMP insulation. Like, this might be a mistake. It doesn't have EMP insulation from the top, that's not great. But anyways, the AI is intended to have EMP insulation from all sides. And then we have the torso area here, so we can fit some detection parts and stuff like that. And we can have some guns in the arms. And I even added some decorations here for the antennas I talked about earlier, so it looks a little bit more like a communications vessel. If we go inside of here, we got some EMP surge protectors to absorb some of that EMP if we get hit by that, and hopefully our AI won't be nuked. And we got a side engine at each side, so it has kind of an auxiliary design. So even if we take this one out, you can see we're still having some engine power. So I thought it was a pretty good idea to have some type of redundancy for this design, because if we lose engine power, we're basically dead. So yeah, I thought that was pretty smart. So this is a little interesting variable engine. It both has injector parts and it has supercharger parts. So it's kind of provides good power efficiency when going on low RPMs for standby, and able to provide some more power when going up for the high consumption, since this injector scales upwards to like pretty high levels when we're getting the pressure for that. So yeah, the engine does need to stick out a little bit to the side here, but since we have redundancy, perhaps it's okay, I hope. And lastly, let's take a little look at the fighter project we started on. So I really want to make a super minimal design for the fighter because I want to make it reach maximum speeds. So right now you can see we're having basically only a custom jet engine, and we have some basic materials, a very basic AI with an IR camera, just on a stick like this. And hopefully we can add as few blocks as possible to really make a max speed design. As for the second iteration here, we added some basic control movement parts to just see if it works. And like surprisingly, just having some elevators and air rudders and tailplanes and ailerons they're called, we can actually make this thing be controlled. So this is somehow aircraft. I don't know how that works, but I guess it kind of does. The funny thing is, if we just add streamlined parts, we can see we can make it go a lot faster. Isn't that kind of fun? Look at that. Well, in any case, let's look at the third and last iteration for this little thing, for this little video. Ta-da! We're having some advanced control block, propulsion control. So we're having thrust direction steering for basically controlling the pitch and the yaw. So that's pretty cool. It goes a little bit chaotically like this, but you can see I'm pretty happy with this design. So if we look at this here, we can see we're going 112 meters per second, which I guess isn't the fastest, but I think it's pretty decent. And we got a basic outline here. So we are going to have some medium missiles and we're going to have some small missiles, and that's gonna be our loadout. So we're gonna rely on missiles to take out other aircrafts. In any case, if we take a little look at my thing here, you can see that if pitch command is up, we'll set pitch, we'll set like this exhaust to pitch with 5 degrees. And if it's negative, it's gonna be -5, and if it's none, it's gonna be 0. So we're kind of having a very simple but very effective system like that. And we set up the same way for jaw. I probably need to make a video for this if you want to sometime, but I'm gonna use this technique later on the Sheriff as well, to make it be able to go forwards and steer and strafe and a little bit like that, using some jet exhaust angles. I think it's pretty cool. I never set this system up like this before, so it's actually new for me. And yes, it takes a little bit of space, and I probably need to learn how to do this with breadboard sometime in the future, but you know, this is already much better or slash more sophisticated than a lot of the other fighters I made before. So I'm happy, and we're really starting on this little butterfly shape here. So I think that's pretty cool. So basically that's it. That's an early little look at the 4 different crafts that will be included in the Army of Gmodism Constabulary. So I hope you enjoyed looking at them in the earliest processes and sketches, both out of game and then in game. Leave a like. Well, I hope you enjoyed the first iteration of the AoG Constabulary build journal. I hope you will join me for the entire process of building all these crafts. If this sounds interesting to you in any way, you should definitely keep tuned to the channel and be subscribed. Join the Army of Gmodism to get some extra updates too, and of course, like the video as always. If you also want to be a part of the commissioned officers in the Army of Gmodism and be such an honorable member, well then, you can absolutely join us at patreon.com/gmodism. This is your host, Gmodism, and I'm signing out.